Hey guys, welcome to math. We are going to tackle the traditional algorithm for fraction division today. And we're going to put a foldable in your notebook. So I have my interactive notebook pages for chapter 2. And I am going to, do you see how we kind of used the multiplication one last week? Today we're going to use dividing. What I'd like you to do is just snip off the top of that. And I'm just going to leave that hanging out in there. And then I'm going to go in my interactive notebook. Theirs was multiplying. And so I'm just going to flip the page and I'm going to put division right behind it. So I mentioned to you in class a couple times already that if you know how to multiply fractions, then dividing fractions is not going to be too tricky. We use multiplying fractions to actually solve and work fraction division questions. Okay, so we have our foldable in there, and we're going to write a couple things down right here. There is, and if you need to pause the video to get yours glued in, go ahead and do that. I want my lid. There is a new math word that you need to know right now for division of fractions. And so over here in your notebook, what I'd like you to write down is we're going to do this. So reciprocal is a new math word, okay? So a reciprocal is basically the flip-flop of a fraction. I'm writing this in real kid terms, okay? So if we say the fraction 2/3, then its reciprocal is 3/2. Do you see how I flipped it? What was on the bottom went to the top. What was on the top went to the bottom, okay? If I have a reciprocal and I want to know what's the reciprocal of 1/4, and I'm just going to draw an arrow, it would be 4/1. We do, can put my hand in, we do the flip-flop, and you'll see me do this in class. You just take it and flip it. Kind of like standing that fraction on its head. Let's do another one. Let's say we had 5/9. The reciprocal is 9/5. Okay? So we use reciprocals when we divide. Sometimes you have to do that with a mixed number or a whole number, right? Those are the other kinds of fractions that you're going to notice. So let's say we had a 12, okay? If you want to know the reciprocal of 12, then what we kind of have to do is just like when we're multiplying. Imagine putting this over a 1, so the reciprocal is 1/12. If we had a 4, the reciprocal is going to be 1/4, because you would imagine putting it over 1 and then flip-flopping it. Okay, so you can kind of see 4, the reciprocal is 1/4. The reciprocal of 1/4 is 4/1. It goes both ways. We can also do reciprocals of mixed numbers, but what you have to do first is change it to an improper fraction. So for example, 3.5, 2 times 3 is 6, plus 1 is 7. So 7/2, the reciprocal would be 2/7. Okay, we need reciprocals when we do dividing fractions. And there is a strategy that we're going to use called, and I'm going to write this here, KFC. Okay, and this is our division strategy. So K stands for keep, and we want to keep the first fraction the same. F stands for flip the second fraction, and this is where the reciprocal comes in. And then C stands for change to multiply. Okay, so we keep the first fraction the same, we flip the second fraction, we change it to multiply. KFC. Okay, and so let's take a look at how that works with our examples here. So when we have a fraction times a fraction, or fraction by a fraction, this is all division. So let's imagine that our problem to begin with here was 3/4 divided by, what do we want to do, a half. Okay, so if that's our problem, Well, the way that we work that is KFC. Keep the first fraction the same. So that's going to be 3/4. Flip the second fraction. So we take our second fraction and we flip it. We do the reciprocal. And then we change this problem to multiply. Okay, so instead of divide, this becomes a multiply problem. And now we can solve this problem. So 3 times 2 is 6. 4 times 1 is 4. 6/4 is 1 2/4, which equals 1 1/2. Okay, this is how we divide fractions. You multiply by the reciprocal. Okay, and that's how you'll hear a lot of people talk about this too. You multiply by the reciprocal, which basically means you flip the second problem or the fraction and multiply. And you'll see that that's the part I changed. I flipped the second one and changed to multiply. And that's kind of what these words up here fill in. So you keep the first fraction, you flip the second fraction, and then you change it to multiply. Keep, flip, change. Keep, flip, change. Then you multiply the fractions, and then always, 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 we simplify and convert to a mixed number, which is nothing different than what we did last week. Okay? So let's go ahead and try that now with a fraction by a whole number. So let's imagine that we had 4/5 divided by 7. Okay, so you've got a fraction divided by a whole number. Well, we're going to keep the first fraction the same. We are going to flip the second one. So we've got to remember 7 is a whole number. We should kind of put it over 1. And then to flip it, then it becomes 1/7. And then we change it to multiplication. Keep the first fraction, flip the second fraction, change it to multiply. Multiply by the reciprocal. And now it's just a multiplication problem. 4 times 1 is 4. 5 times 7 is 35. 4/35 is as simplified as that will go, and so that's our answer. Okay? So the directions up here were to write a 1 under the whole number, KFC. Keep, flip, change, right? Multiply the fractions, and then we simplify. What we're doing, guys, is we're changing these all into a multiplication problem, and that's allowable when you multiply by the reciprocal. The key is this reciprocal part, okay? And it's always, always, always the second fraction, never the first one, okay? Let's try 2 mixed numbers. So let's imagine we had 3 1/2 divided by 2 4/5, okay? So just like when we were multiplying, the first step is to convert our mixed numbers to improper fractions. And you can use your calculator for that. I'm just going to do it just mental math because that's not too difficult for me. So 2 times 3 is 6 plus 1 is 7. So we have 7 halves. And then 5 times 2 is 10 plus 4 is 14/5. Okay, so I changed them to improper. Now we're going to KFC. We're going to keep the first fraction the same. We're going to flip the second one. So 14/5 becomes 5/14. And we change it to multiply. Keep the first fraction, flip the second fraction, change it to multiply. KFC. And now we're ready just to multiply straight across. So 7 times 5 is 35. 2 times 14 is 28. And then we have to, as always, simplify and convert it back to a mixed number. So 28 will go into 35 once with 7 left over. So 1 7 28. Now 7 28 is not simplified. 7 would divide in both of those. So this is going to be 1 1/4. And that is my final answer. Okay, so that's kind of how this works. It's all based upon this KFC. Keep the first fraction the same, flip the second fraction, change to multiply. KFC. And that works because of these reciprocals. And you'll notice it's always the second fraction that I am changing, flipping, not the first one. Okay, so I'm going to have you try this for a little bit in your journal before I see you at 9. And so let's go to your journal. And this goes with lesson 2.8. We skipped 2.7 today so that we could kind of do the traditional algorithm here for a bit. So what I would like you to do is we're going to skip the math message. Okay. Would you please try 2 and 3, so page 80, and then I would like you to see how much you can get done on also page 81, okay? Some of these may go quicker than others, and you'll see some of these are just multiplication. These are the division ones, and it's calling the division of fractions property. That is KFC, keep, flip, change. Keep the first, flip the second. That is what that is. So I'd like you to try all of 80 and 81 except for the math message. And when we get together at 9 o'clock, we'll talk about that and see how it goes. So that was Riley's post-it. So your to-do list is page 80 and 81. And I'm going to remind you to KFC. Keep the first fraction, flip the second fraction, change to multiply. Okay, give that a shot, and I'll see you at 9 o'clock to review it and see how it went.